the Buffalo Bills, who earned the AFC East division title with that Sunday night victory over the Dolphins. Look, Sam, this Buffalo Bills team has had their ups and downs. They've, at times, we talked about this last week, at times they look like a Super Bowl contending team. At times they look like they shouldn't be in the playoffs. But here they are, the number 2 seed. Definitely surprised both you and I in terms of how this season ended for them. Arguably saved by a 96-yard punt return that really changed that whole game against Miami. But now they get a favorable matchup at home against Pittsburgh Steelers without TJ Watt. Sam, what are some of the storylines and who's a key player that you have in this game that you think can really be a contributing factor?
Well, I think, first of all what you said was very accurate. I saw a little stat today where, as of December 3rd, Philadelphia was 10-2. The Dolphins were 9-3, and the Bills were 6-6, and only one of those 3 teams won their division.
Wow.
And that was the Bills. That's who were 6-6 on December 3rd. Crazy. And a guy you mentioned on the punt return, Deontay Hardy, quick little another factoid there, which he needed an incentive where his returns were over 9.4 yards per average return. And he was at like 8.7. And with that 95-yard return touchdown, it went up to 10.3. So he got an incentive because he loved those incentives. So that was another little cool factoid. Look, I don't know what to make about the Bills. I really do not know. The fact that we're talking about the Steelers against the Bills in Buffalo, a month ago, I would have said you're crazy. I mean, again, this was a team that had Kenny Pickett, and it wasn't great. They had Matt Canada. It didn't work out. He's gone, and then all of a sudden they go to Trubisky. Remember Trubisky against the Colts, and just how bad he looked? I mean, that wasn't so long ago. And then they ran this hot hand of Mason Rudolph, and they got lucky that they faced, Baltimore playing nobody in week 18. They won a sloppy game in the rain in Baltimore. And because of that, and because of Jacksonville's loss, they get in. Buffalo got in because of Jacksonville's loss. And so they weren't playing for anything other than the division. They were already in the playoffs. And they ended up winning because that game would have been at Miami won, back in Miami, a repeat Miami and Buffalo. And that would have been, part 3 of, each team has won. But TJ Watt is out for this game. I mean, that to me is like the big storyline, because this is a guy who led the league in sacks, right? 19 sacks. TJ Watt, I saw JJ Watt on Twitter today saying, would they know the difference? And it was him photoshopped into a Steelers jersey. So he's out. He's that heartbeat for the Steelers defense. I really haven't seen a lot of Minkah Fitzpatrick this year. On the Buffalo side of things, we know that Josh Allen can perform in the playoffs. We've seen him perform, but I don't know what to make out of Buffalo. I mean, Stephon Diggs did look good in the last game. Their defense, again, what's going on with Von Miller? Is he even going to be active for this game? Defensively, they did get some pressure on Miami. Are they going to be able to do that against Pittsburgh? And are they going to be able to really get the offense clicking? I mean, again, you were at a Bills game recently. You know what it's like. We've been to Bills games in the past. The fans are crazy. The Bills Mafia fans, they're going to be hyped up, right? And I think you got the best case scenario in going up against Mason Rudolph, but I'm still not confident about the Bills. I mean, we talked about it going into last week. Josh Allen in these big games, 2 turnovers, 3 turnovers, sorry, 1 fumble, 2 interceptions, 1 interception on 4th and 2. I don't know what he was doing in that situation. And I always worry about Sean McDermott. But Seth, so much going into that game. Who's the guy that you're looking for as the guy that needs to step up in this Bills-Steelers matchup?
Yeah, there's a lot of players you can choose on both sides of the ball. I mean, Najee Harris, 1,000-yard rusher, George Pickens, 1,000-yard receiver. Like, there are weapons in Pittsburgh. But for me, the player that I think is someone I'm going to watch as long as the Bills are in the playoffs in terms of what he can do for this offense is Dalton Kincaid, the rookie tight end who has lived up to the hype after they drafted him, has really opened the middle of this field. And the chemistry that he has with Josh Allen is very evident. And I think something that the Bills offenses have lacked in the previous postseason runs that they've been on is that reliable tight end, middle of the field, who can also run deep threat in Dalton Kincaid. Because Dawson Knox, very serviceable tight end, very good in the red zone, but he wasn't putting up big numbers the way that Dalton Kincaid is. And I think what getting him involved. Obviously, this is a rookie, so this could be one of those breakout performances where a rookie tight end really shows us that he could be an elite player in this NFL and creates his own legacy. But I really think they need to get that ball spread out. We know what he can do on the sides with Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis when they're clicking, which is not often, which is why I think he's really going to have to rely on Dalton Kincaid.
And there's not really any linebackers in Pittsburgh that can really match up with Kincaid. Although Dawson Knox did get the game-winning touchdown in last week in the Miami-Buffalo game. I think those are all good points, and Gabe Davis actually is questionable for the game. I think he's going to be a game-time decision, so that would be one less target for Josh Allen, and I think more focus on Dalton Kincaid. So I think that's an excellent choice. To me, it's Mason Rudolph. Again, I don't want to keep saying the word legacy game because then it's just going to get watered down, but Mason Rudolph, what a year. I mean, like, the guy was third string going into the season, and now he's playing as a starting quarterback for Pittsburgh in a playoff game on the road. The big thing, again, in this one for me is the weather. And you're, Sam, no one really cares. You're not a meteorologist. Why are you talking about the weather? Well, it does factor in. And the over-under was set at 42.5. It is now dropped down to 36.5. So the odds makers know something, and they know that it's going to be snowy, it's going to be windy. I think it's going to be even windier in Buffalo than it is in Kansas City. I think just Kansas City is going to be a lot colder. Pittsburgh, Buffalo, they're used to the cold weather. So I don't think, like, whereas Miami's used to the warm weather, like that, it's going to be a big difficulty for him. But I think, again, you just talked about Mason Rudolph having a 1,000-yard rusher in Najee Harris and a 1,000-yard receiver in George Pickens. I think George Pickens, we've all talked about this year at certain points throughout this podcast, has really taken a step up, even though there's been some questionable antics on the sidelines and there's questionable antics in terms of his blocking. This is the big playmaker. I know Deontay Johnson had a big game against Pittsburgh in that Week 18 game. Sorry, against Baltimore in that Week 18 game. Is he going to be able to step up? But they do have some pieces in Pittsburgh. And again, Josh Allen's going to put up points one way or another, whether it's with his legs or with his arm, probably both, because he's got 2 touchdowns, I'm pretty sure, every game this year, at least 2 total touchdowns. Can Mason Rudolph do that? And again, this is a team that had so many questions on offense. They fired their both these teams fired their coordinators. And look where they are now. One of these teams is going to be moving on to the divisional round. I just don't know if Pittsburgh's that team, and even watching them against Baltimore, who was playing a lot of second stringers, they're just not an exciting style of football. And if Josh Allen gets ahead, I don't think Pittsburgh can play with that, come from behind mentality. They need to get up to a quick start. They need their defense to step up. And again, as I mentioned, TJ Watt out, someone's going to step up. And again, it's going to come down to the quarterback. And that's why I think Mason Rudolph is going to be that guy for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting game. And Mason Rudolph, he doesn't have to do anything flashy, but he's got to play smart. He can't turn over the ball. Going into this game, Buffalo's 10-point favorite. So a lot of people, including us, believe that this is Buffalo's game to lose. Mason Rudolph could be that determining factor as to providing that upset.